Hello everybody, I have a 2013 Toyota RAV4 and on this car I am actually rebuilding the transmission for this guy. 5-liter Toyota motor. So to get to the transmission part from the top here, we'll need to remove the airbox, which is connected by 2 bolts. There's one here and then one right here, and the box comes off. You can disconnect this right here and then unplug the master flow sensor right there, and the box comes off. Next, we're going to remove this battery tray. Yeah, so let's take this guy out. And one more here. Perfect. Once we get all these bolts out, the battery tray comes off just like that. Now, there's 2 more down there. So to get the transmission plug disconnected, you have to remove these 2 12mm bolts here, and then you can unplug the transmission connector there. Next, you're going to need to remove starter motor. That's 14mm bolts. Take those bolts out, unplug it, and pull the starter motor out. We need to disconnect the cooler next. Disconnect 2 of the cooler feed lines there. And then you need to disconnect the cooler feed lines here. And I think on top you don't have a lot of work to do here. After this, we're just going to go back here, disconnect the ground cable, which is right here. After the ground cable, we're going to disconnect the shifter cables right here. Put this, pull this clip out, and the cable will push back and then out. Disconnecting from the transmission side should be straightforward as well. To disconnect, you have to open this bolt, this 12mm, and then the shift lever will go down. Now, to disconnect from the top, pretty much it's a very small amount. You don't want to disconnect all of this. This is not in your way. However, you do have to go is at the bottom. If yours is an all-wheel drive, you're going to need a drive shaft disconnected that going back to the car, and then you need the front axles disconnected from both sides, left and right. And to do that, you're gonna need to get the car on a jack. So on this side, I just removed these 2 bolts for the struts. I also got the bolt disconnected for the tie rod end. So the tie rod end comes out. Now the axle is kind of stuck. I do have a tool for it, but if you don't, you're gonna put something in that hole there and hammer it. Do not hammer the face. It's not a good idea. If you could get a tool like that, that should be perfect. It makes the job easier. There you go. Now, let's see. There we go. The reason you want to disconnect the axle and push the axle in before disconnecting the hub is you don't want the axle joint popping out of the housing. Yes, you can put it back together, but it is quite a bit of work. So let's do this again. Hopefully we get the axle free completely. There you go. Easy peasy. Now have to go on the transmission side under the vehicle and pry the axle out. There is tool for that as well that you can use. They're not that expensive tools, but of course you get one tool here, one tool there, and money adds up. When it comes to driver's side axle is mounted with a bracket onto the engine assembly. So this is the driver's side, and the axle is mounted using this bracket. You see that one? Yeah. And then it goes into the transmission. So I'm going to go disconnect the bracket, Slide the axle out, get both of the axles free, and then I will start disconnecting the bottom section of the transmission, which are all the bolts. Take out the torque converter bolts, and then I'll disconnect the top. Under the transmission, there's a brace. On this side, there's this metal brace. We're going to disconnect it. There's a bolt right here. We're going to disconnect this bolt underneath there. So it's too dark. My flashlight is charging anyway. There's a bolt down there. We're going to disconnect this brace out of the way so we can easily drop the trans down when we're ready for it. However, you do have to maneuver the transmission a little bit, twist up, and take it down. To disconnect the transmission, we do have to remove these bolts here. Transmission housing bolts. They go all around it. But we're not going to do the top one just yet. First, I'm going to disconnect complete transmission from the bottom. Put a jack under the engine, holding the engine in place. Once I've done that, then I'll disconnect this mount, and that would allow the engine to stay in place and the transmission will be free for me to take out. I can also drop the engine down or up in case if I need to lower the transmission to slide out. If you have the torque converter completely disconnected, you only need this much room to slide the transmission back and down. If you do not disconnect the torque converter completely, it's a mess, and this trans will never come out without giving you headache. So this is how we take the axles out, and I'm gonna go underneath and take the rest of the parts out.